We now have our top level assembly of the engine, and we've created some steps under the levels of detail. So we have step 1 might be all these gears and all these things below the flywheel. Then you bring the flywheel and the crankshaft and everything that would assemble onto there, including the spacers, and on through, and you should have, try and get it to a maximum of 5 steps. So you see that each step just suppresses components. Well, when we do that, we're also going to use steps in creating ipns. So IPN is a presentation file that's going to give us an exploded state. So when we create the view, we're going to have to say what we're looking at, and usually when you have the assembly open, it's going to recognize that. Now the options button you might have never used. So when you say, okay, I'm going to use the master level of representation, but I might use step 1, and say okay, and okay. And so now I have, no, I don't need that. So now I have my assembly here. If I go to the home view and I rotate it around, do you guys remember how to make a certain view your home view? So let's say I want it to be this orientation. You can right click on this home and say I want to set this as my home view, and I want it to fit it to view. So as I'm way out here and I hit my home button, it'll bring it in and fit it to view. So you can reorient your master position for your isometric view. When I have this, now I'm going to start to tweak components. So I know that I'm going to tweak some components together because some things are actually mounted to other things, and I want them to all move at the same time. So I'm going to select a direction, and I might just select a plane. Whatever is highlighted here in blue is highlighted here in blue, and that's the direction that it's going to be moving. So now I'm going to move some components, and I'm going to allow my display trails. Alright, I'm going to show my offset origin. So I'm going to select several of these parts, holding down Control. If they're subassemblies, then I'm going to select the subassembly. And I think there's something else in there. So I've got all those. Now what else is connected to it? I have the rocker arm and its screw and its washer and spacer. So I'm going to, and the tappet. This thing is attached to the base, so I can leave it there and I can just pull those two up together. But right now, I'm just going to bring those, and I'm going to start to drag those up. Now you may not need all these trails, so you can hide everything but maybe one trail in all 3 locations. It's not necessary to have all of them, especially if they come straight up and down. And I might say, let's say that I want to offset that 2 inches. And you can make it very evident. So if I forgot something and I wanted to offset that 2 inches, it would be in exactly the right spot. That's the only reason that I would put an absolute number in here. Alright, then I might clear that and say now I'm going to offset this. Maybe I offset these out so that I can pull these away. Does that make any sense? So I could say direction, might select that. My Z direction is coming this way, and I'd select this part and this part and grab the Z and just drag it on out. Now you see that your offset lines are turning, so it's going to show. Now I might bring it on out as far as something like this. I still want my screws to show that it goes up in here, and in the drawing I might actually draw a sketch on my view and draw some offset lines in that jutted orientation to show that from the screw hole, screws are going to come up and into this part. Alright, I'm going to clear that, and now I'm going to go from this direction and I'm going to select this one. Now everything doesn't have to be lifted off. Like this spring is just connected to that plate. There's no reason for me to lift that one off. I could just lift the screw out. That's good enough. Sometimes you're going to lift almost everything out and just leave a couple things stationary. As long as you pull them apart, it's okay. The next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to bring all this whole thing out, and probably these things. So I'm going to select this plane, and holding Control down, I'm going to select all these components with the tappet. And notice that I'm not bringing the bearings out. I'm not bringing this out because this is inseparable assembly with this part. So I'm going to bring these out. And those are an assembly as well. And I'll probably bring this one out as well, and then just space that off a little bit. So let me go back to my home view. It's very important to bring these out in your home views because that's the way it's going to be shown. So I'm just going to go ahead and grab this Z, and I'm going to start to drag these out. Now if something didn't get caught, go ahead and select this one again. And now it's bringing the whole thing out. So I don't want that one. I'm going to click on that again. I don't want that one. So Control brings them in or brings them out equally. I'm going to bring that there and say clear, or I'm going to clear that, and I'm going to select this one, and I'm going to drag this back just a little bit. Alright, I don't want all these components, I just want that one, and drag this one back just a little bit, and maybe I drag this component and take that one off, and I drag this one out just a little bit. Does that make sense to you guys? So just spreading them out. You're going to see that there is a cam gear assembly here. It may not show that cam, but now I need to spread these. So I'm going to grab this one, and in that same direction I'm going to hold down Control, and I'm going to let that one go. I'm going to bring this one in here just a little bit. And let's go back to the home view. That looks pretty good. You just want to be able to see all the sub-assemblies. I can see this sub-assembly. I can call out 4 of these. I see that there's one on this side. I would assume that there are going to be some on the other sides. You might say 2 on each side when you show those balloons. And I'm going to clear all that. So that's going to be my IPN for that one step. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to File, Save As, or Save. And I'm going to call this Step 1A because I have Step 1s from last semester. And you're going to create a different IPN for every step. Does that make sense? Alright. So when you get to your drawing, I'm going to go ahead and open from the S drive. Inventor D Proto, D size drawing. So it's going to bring that in on sheet 1. You're going to have a couple things. I'm going to put in a base view of not step 1A but the overall. And notice that I can have a master, or I could show levels of detail in each one of my steps, in each one of my views. So I'm going to go ahead and say I want to show my master of that assembly, and it's going to have to repopulate it. And I'm going to say that I want to hit that button right there, and it'll let you customize your view. So I'll definitely use this one, and I will put this down here at whatever scale. I don't know if we can get a couple of these in here. The parts list is going to be pretty good sized. Since you have some sub-assemblies, your parts list may not be as bad as this one. So I'm going to hit escape here, and I don't want another projected view. I would leave these shaded, and if you could call out something such as these peripherals, that would probably be a good idea. Like the last things that you would put on, the oil cup assembly, you might put on the exhaust onto the valve assembly before you put the valve assembly on. So I would kind of leave that one. But you could do the oil cup assembly here, the spark plug, the condenser, and the points. Those 4 you could do on this first sheet pretty easily. Then if you put another base view, let's see if we can get another one. How does it not know what I want to put in there again? Let me go here. I'm going to go to my home view, and then I'm just going to turn it around. And I'm going to use the master view so that it repopulates everything, and I'm going to set that one down. So now if I don't know that I can actually get these views in here at this. You may get them at, what was it, 1:1? Yeah, these are really, really too large. It's not like this is showing a great amount of detail. You could even make this the top view to show these gears and everything inside. So if I wanted to edit this view, I'm just going to hit top. This might also be a good view. So I think these are going to have to go down to 1:1. I wish we could edit both. We can edit both the views at the same time. So it'll let us do some things to it. I guess it didn't. So let's make these 1:1. Can we make it 1 to 3/4 or 1 1 to 2/3? But I think that's just a little odd. And once again, it didn't change that for me. So you could have different scales. If you have different scales, make sure that you identify the scales underneath the views if they're different. Otherwise, you're going to have a scale in here. It's going to be the same through all your drawings. Now, the next thing that we're going to go over is parts list. So we're going to go to annotation. That's text. It's in the parts list. You're going to select the view. Structured, and say OK. Here's my parts list. Looks pretty small. But you're also going to notice that most of these things are lowercase letters. You're going to have to go in here and edit every one of these. Now, the ones that you're going to be that are very important, ignition points. You might go to the plans and actually get the points, whatever it said those points are, and put them in the description. The other thing is this. If I double click on this, if I go to the layout, alright, bad style data. I agree. So I'm going to make this all caps. And I'm going to have my direction go from the bottom up and the heading from the bottom up. So it didn't even have a heading on there before. So now we can see that we need to stretch some of these out. So Descriptio needs to be stretched out, and you could stretch these out so that they're just about as wide as the whole title block. It's pretty narrow. And you can get a lot more description over here. You can change these columns to smaller columns and then make this very much larger. Alright, so the ones that you need some information about is the roll pin. You've got a roll pin. How long is it? It's not just long. You need to say how long it is. So you might put that length description over here. Yes? All capital letters. No, they need to be all caps. That's what I was saying. You're going to have to go back and make these. You're going to have to edit this, double click on it, and edit every one of these. Now, it looks all caps here. So what you might do is print out your sheet and make all your notes and go in here and do it all at once. Alright. The other thing is ignition points. There's something on that. How long is this button head screw? You need to say how long that is. What size is the set screw? And how long? So you're going to have to get more information on this. And everybody always has to do this. I mean, honestly, modeling is like the video game part. This is a part where you're actually going to have to do the work. Okay? So you're going to have to go through these. NGK, take off new. You can find an NGK plug by this number, so that's okay. If you use the 1/4 inch spark plug, you're going to have to put that in. The condenser set screws, ignition points. The ignition cam is something. What is this? 32190. I don't even know what that is. So some of these things, I mean, just look at this as if you didn't know what this is, and make sure that you put it in there like you don't know what it is. You need to put a full description in there. If there's a part number that you can reference, like the modified cams, those are sub-assemblies, but you might say includes modified cam part number, blah, 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 blah. People are going to appreciate that when they see that in your portfolio, because you're going to have to do this at a company. You can't just leave it like this. Okay, so when we get to balloons, that's going to be on the next sheet. So in adding a sheet, you're going to right click on this white area and you're going to say new sheet, and it's going to allow you to fill in those title blocks. So you're going to have sheet numbers. You're not going to know 1 of 13 or 1 of 18 until you get finished, and then you need to go and change all your sheet numbers. So let's go ahead and put in a new view. Let's place views base, and we'll select the same assembly. And I'm going to select that IPN. Now when I do that, I'm going to go to orientation. It goes to the IPN, lets me customize it. And then I can put that down. Now I can put that down in a 2:1 scale. So if all your exploded views are going to be in a 2:1 scale, then guess what? You're going to put the scale under sheet 1 in those other two views and make your entire drawing scale 2:1. Does that make sense? Okay. So I'm going to put that down. And you're going to notice that you're going to remove some of these. So I'll just take off visibility. That looks pretty simple to me. I don't even know why this is coming up this way. So if you, honestly, I would take off visibility to this one. And if I wanted an offset line here, I would select on this view and create a sketch. And I can draw a line. As long as I project geometry, I can draw a line from here all the way back to, and I project geometry of this, just from center to center, and then I can delete this projected geometry out so it doesn't show up in my sketch. Now when I do that, if I right click on that, I can go to the properties of that line, and the correct property style is a double dashed line. That's like a phantom line like we learned in 1405. So now I'm going to grab this and I'm going to delete it, and I'm going to grab this and I'm going to trim it, or I'm going to move it all the way back. Doesn't want to trim, does it? So I can project geometry of this, and I can use a trim. What is that? Delete all that, and then delete this projected geometry. And then you would do the same thing here. You're going to trim it out as if that's going through there. Let's see if it'll trim around anything. I have to project it, and now I'm going to trim it. Now I'm going to delete these back out because I don't want those circles showing on my drawing. Does that make sense to you guys? A little bit more work, but sometimes these offset lines are weird. I would even take this one off. So I'm going to finish that sketch, and you can have more than that. Like I might have these offset lines to these screws, but I'm going to pull these screws down too. Right? So I'm going to save this drawing as, alright, I saved it as that. I shouldn't have done that. But now when I go back to this IPN, when you're inside the drawing, the smartest thing to do is open views and your models from the drawing. This happens forever in 1433 when people have things on a flash drive and they have them on another, and they don't know where the part came from that they have in their drawing. So if you right click and you open it from the drawing, you know that you have the right one. So on this one, I'm going to tweak in this direction. I have to come down step 1A. And I'm going to go to my home view here. So you can have multiple explosions. So did you check that out? So you can have one whole IPN that has multiple explosions. So what could I do? I could do this one in this explosion. I'm going to delete it, and I'm going to create a new view. From this one I can have that assembly. It could be at a master level, but it could be step 2. And I can say OK. So now I have step 2, and I can actually select which explosion that I want in the view on the drawing. So I can have one IPN. Does that make sense? Instead of having a bunch of them? Alright, so if I go to explosion 2, and that's active, and I'm going to go to the home view, I have all these things in here. You don't have to show all these parts that were already put on in step 1 and step 2. If you need to remove them so that it's easier to see how things go together, that's okay. You could actually just have these things together with this and not have the plate and all this rocker arm on here, and that would be fine. You're just showing all these things going together. You don't have to continually see the last parts. Let's go back to explosion 1, and I told you that I wanted to tweak some components on that. So I'm going to select these 4 screws. And sometimes the easiest way is to expand this out and select your screws in the menu. So now I'm going to grab this and I'm going to drag these down and save that. Now go to explosion 3, all that stuff goes back to place, and now I can start creating more tweaks, so I can tweak components. So I can move this out, and I can move all these things out so that I can see them going on there. Does that make sense? Alright, so if I created tweak components, I'm going to select this one in that direction. I'm going to move these two components out at the same time, including the bearings that are inside there. So let's see if it shows me the bearings. If it's not showing me those bearings there, I'm thinking that the bearings are somewhere else, but maybe it only has 2 bearings anyway. Alright, I'm just going to go ahead and bring these out and see what it does. Hey, cut it out. Now I'm going to take this out 2 inches. And I'm going to bring this one out. I'm going to clear that. And I'm going to bring this one out 2 inches. So that went ahead and put that exactly right where those other ones were. If I wanted to clear that, and let's start this one. So I'd come over here and I'd grab the flywheel assembly. And did I get my direction off this one? I don't know why it grabbed that one too. So let's bring that out. Look what it's doing there. I don't know what's up with that. I don't know if that's a component of the way that that's put together or what. But you can bring all these things out little by little. And one thing that you might want to do is turn this around so that you're actually showing how the gears overlap whenever you put them together. So now I have that, and I'm going to save it. I want you to see what this does to the drawing. So I'm going to go back to the drawing, and let's say I want to put a new sheet in, and I want to have step 3 in there. So I'm going to put the base view in. I've got explosion 1 and I've got explosion 3 out of that same IPN. Does that make sense to you guys? Alright. Okay. Now I want you to get all your views set up and all your offset lines, and then we're going to start putting balloons on. Because one thing that we're going to find is that we got 4 balloons on one page, we got 4 screws of the same size on one page and 2 of the same screws on another page. I want you to split those out. And there's a trick to doing that. So I want to show you that. The reason is, if I go back to sheet 2 and I go in here and I put a balloon on, that's under annotation. The balloon style that we're going to use is split. So if you want to edit the balloon style to do that automatically, edit the balloon style right there and it'll do it to all of them. Right here in the shape, you're going to change this to a split. It has item in the top and quantity in the second part. Well, I don't have 6 of these here. I only have 4 in this one step. So I want to trick this, and I want it to show 4 here and 2 in the next one. Does that make sense? Okay. So I'm just going to save right there. This is getting too long.